Mish, tell me a little bit about the business of trading.
Well, it's certainly a business that has, for me, changed a lot through the years as I mature, obviously, and pick and choose more of what I want to do. And I think that's really basically the trading business, is that you start out, I believe, as becoming a specialist in one thing. And if that's exactly how I began my career, because I started out trading coffee, sugar, cocoa futures for Continental Grain's Conti Commodity Division, and that's all I knew. That's all I did. I'd get up in the morning, I'd go to the floor, I would chart, I would day trade, sometimes I would really basically scalp trade. The market would close, and my positions would be closed out, and this is where I began. Within 3 years, I now was starting to learn other things. I went over to COMEX, I was trading gold and silver, and now I was becoming a specialist in how they moved, and also becoming more mature as a trader. So the business of trading for me now became more of, I'm going to hold something overnight because I think silver is trending or gold is trending. And then I spent 14 years just switching from commodities, but always at the end of the day being done and having the power as a local, because I eventually went from trading for a company to being a local, which means independent trader. I was able to really decide how much I wanted the business to dominate me back then. And that is really what I think a lot of people are attracted to, right? Is the idea that you can, number one, pure bastion of capitalism, one of the few left, because I was poor and I went down there and made a success of myself with just my own wits and the movements of the market. Two is I was able to leave and go do whatever it is I wanted to do. And C is I was able to just not trade if things were dead. That's how I started. And sometimes I pine for those old days.
Back in the simpler days.
So simple, no social media, it was just, there was social media in fact that there was 2,000 guys down there, so I had a lot of social activity throughout the day. But when I would leave, as we talked about before, I'd have to quiet the noise, so I would do everything in my power. Now, fast forward, it seems like it's harder to really discern between the business and doing the business, and also how much it infiltrates into your other part of your life or your more personal life. Because there's hundreds and hundreds of instruments to trade now. I'm not just trading one commodity. Two is I have a responsibility because of my past as an educator. I have, like you, become an educator and a trader. And three is because of social media, it's like you never really turn it off.
Yeah.
And the level of access of information has become fast, and everything moves so fast.
Well, we got everything on our phones now, and along with the internet and everything. Plus, I think somewhat the personalities that are attracted to the market, they're very strong, tenacious personalities, because they're like, I'm going to do something with this and learn it and succeed. And it can really kind of be all-consuming: eat, sleep, trade, repeat. And so I think if we get into those kind of things, we do need to take those times and moments to actually separate. And the work-life balance, at least for me, is, and again, like you said, I think that people are attracted to the market for this reason. Like, hey, I knew I was going to be taking a vacation to Hawaii with my wife. I can generally see where the market's going to be going, how things are going to be, and you just position yourself. You're like, I know I'm going to be going to cash in about a week or two, and see how the market does. You take a couple trades off, and you think, okay, I know if I put any more trades on, they're not going to work out in the timeline that I need. So you just take them off. You let your subscribers know, hey, this is what's going on. You set them up for the week you're going to be gone, and then you can just take off. Now, of course, I kind of checked in, wanted to see what the market was doing, but I had no responsibilities. I had no money in the market. And I think that is the just real ability to where we can say we get to work when we want to.
Absolutely. And I know that your wife, because we were talking earlier, is not in the business. So does that help you? Because you have somebody, is she interested in trading? Do you talk shop with her?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Yeah. So I mean, she likes to hear how my day was and stuff, and she understands the concepts, but yeah, she just has no interest, which is fine. Fine with me. I got plenty of other people who, my dad or any other partners or traders and things like that. I have a few hundred subscribers that I can talk to about the market if I want to. So plenty of outlet for that. Now, it's nice because her job is pretty flexible too. And so if we need to take a day off or this or that, we can. You know, she has always got Mondays off and the weekends off. And so if I need to be a little bit flexible, I can. And I can make my schedule work with hers.
Well, I had to fall in love with another trader, you know, just to make it even more challenging to have any boundary.
Well, it seems like that was bound to happen if you spent 14 years in the pits.
Well, actually, I'm so happy you brought that up because I did not go there with any intention of, I'm going to find a husband. That was not my thing at all.
Well, usually love is not with an intention in that case.
Exactly.
You know?
And the interesting thing is that when I met Keith, he was already leaving the floor because he started a company called Market Vision, which was really basically doing intelligent tools for traders long before we were just working with a Quotron machine back in those days. And he was doing multiple, what he called portals of charts, all that you can see on the screen at the same time in 1981.
Yeah.
So that gave me a little bit more permission to feel good about dating him because he wasn't going to be on the floor every day. I was careful about that. But here we are. He and I have been together, well, we've known each other forever, but over 33 years. We'll be married 33 years this summer. And I think the hardest thing in terms of the business of the trading is we have this business. It's separating, for me personally. We're not going to talk about, put down your phone.
Yep. You got to have that personal time.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned Hawaii because we went there this summer and we put our phones away.
Must have been very nice.
It was amazing. The first day it's like an addiction. You feel like.
Yeah. You're like, well, I'll just kind of look at it one more time before I go to bed.
But by the third day, you're like,
it's really kind of nice when you separate. And I really do think that traders in general need to understand that. If people in general, we are in such a connected world, a connected life. I mean, Twitter and Instagram, all this kind of stuff. We need to be okay about separating. It's not the end-all be-all. And you need to take some time for yourself and recharge.
Right, and what this does is it gives your mind expansion to be able to think, which is another thing I wanted to talk to you about because I know you have multiple experiences, Air Force, engineering. I'm sure you have, obviously, as a consumer, some personal hobbies and things that you buy. How much does your own consumer instinct play into spotting things that you might be interested in other than what you see from technical analysis?
You know, I think for me personally, it is not so much about a consumer instinct because, you know, sometimes you could think this is a great product and the thing will just not go anywhere as far as stock. But on the other hand, yes, if there are really great products and you see that company, like that's going to be something, and then they do take off. So I do think that there is a bit of a double-edged sword that we need to be careful about with that. You know, there's that adage like, you know, buy what you use and know and you love. Mm-hmm. But we got to be careful, and we do have to understand what market conditions are. I mean, you know, if there's a strong market, a lot of things are going to go up no matter what. If it's a bear market, a lot of things are just not going to go anywhere. So just got to be careful about that. But I think what I do is I try to look around and see what everybody else is, like what is hot out there. Because I try not to buy too many things. I'm not always on the latest fad. Mm-hmm. My fashion isn't there either. And so I just need to make sure that I hear the buzz mm-hmm. of what's going around. Mm-hmm. And you know, CELH is one that has been a buzz for a while. It's some energy drink. Well, okay, I barely heard about it, but I know that there's buzz going on about it, so I look into it. And I think that that is kind of the other thing, that we just need to figure out ways of hearing the buzz, and then we can figure out if the charts are representing it as well.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because I know that, so a lot of the stuff that comes up for you in terms of your signals is just based on what is actually meeting the criteria of your Moxie indicator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we have something similar because we're using actually algorithms to determine what has trend strength indicators and momentum and is set up in the right place for it to be taking off. Different sectors use different types of trend strength indicators. Some are pure momentum, some are just based on the cross moving averages, key moving averages. But I've always been a discretionary trader, and so for me, I've been very much moved by whether it's consumer instinct or just observation of the world. And that gets back to our point, is you must take a break and step back and give your mind an ability to think that through. So, for example, gold. I have been thinking, I went back and found an article I wrote for, well, I didn't write it, but I was interviewed for Stocks and Commodities magazine in December 2019. And I reread it, and I couldn't believe it. I actually said, I don't know what's going to happen yet. How could I? But I do know that it's not sustainable that gold ratio to the Dow is at a 100-year historical low. And something is going to happen to bring that ratio in and make gold go up. We're ready for chaos. 3 months later, there's COVID, right? Within a few months after the stimulus money came in, gold ran, up to its first new high until more recently. And that was all just from the fact, and it was December, so I thought about it. I was taking a break, it was the holiday season. It's so important, but like you said before, it doesn't mean that just because you have this great brainiac idea, it's going to work out. And here's another example. So Cheesecake Factory in Hawaii, were you in Waikiki by any chance?
Kona.
Oh, okay. Well, in Waikiki, they have a cheesecake factory. Well, they have them all over the place. And it was lines down the street waiting to get into that. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to look at cake, which is the symbol. And it has been trading stuck between like $28 and $35, just like the whole market, for months. But because I know that that's a go-to restaurant even when things aren't so great, and I've been there, it's a massive menu. Have you ever ate a cheesecake factory? And they even have one in New Mexico. So that's like a big thing, because New Mexico doesn't have everything that you can see in the country because it's not a very highly populated state. But anyway, that would be a stock based on consumer instinct, based on observation while on vacation that I got to experience, that I would keep an eye on. And the reason why I bring that up is because if I'm constantly working and in the phone and then going home and all I can basically do is put on something to watch on Netflix, eat, go to sleep, you miss out on all of that decision making.
There is an experience component. So I think some hunches, experience out in the world, and just seeing, hey, there's something about this. And I think the latest one I can think of right now is ON. I forget that's the ticker, but at the shoe company, basically.
Right.
Hot stuff. Something's going around. So it's one of those things. Just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, like Crocs went crazy because some girl did a YouTube video where she showed how you could bejewel your Crocs. And that was the beginning of the explosion because that video went viral. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great ideas out there. So
I think it's just you got to keep your eyes open, see what's going around out there, keep your ear to the ground, and see where the buzz is coming from. And I think as part of that, that helps you be a better trader, just so you can see what's going on.
But as we both know very well, as we're sitting here, is that if you don't have a knowledge of technical analysis, if you don't understand where things are in a price point of a chart, if you don't understand the trend or the phase or the cycle, whatever you want to call it, if you don't know where they are relative to the 50 and the 200-day moving average, if you have no sense of what the overall macro is doing in terms of being able to have some kind of a top-down approach, that great idea can turn out to be really bad.
Yeah, the market is there to mess with your mind, and it'll make you buy at the wrong place and get out at the wrong place. So a little bit of education helps you with those hunches too.
Exactly. So what do you do in your free time when you're not, besides traveling and hanging out with your wife?
Yeah, well, for me, now that I'm up in Washington full time, we bought a boat with the 2020 winnings. You know, that great bull market that we had. So we replaced the old Bayliner with a Mastercraft, and we got a wake surf boat. So that was our entertainment for a couple years while we were all in COVID lockdown. And so yeah, we're getting close to summer now, so I'm looking forward to doing that. My dad and I are pilots, my grandparents are pilots, and so our hobby is to fly our airplanes around and do whatever we want with those. And then I like to work on cars and build stuff. So I've got a 1977 Camaro that I work on and tinker with. I've had it since, actually, my parents helped me buy the project car when I was graduated 8th grade going into freshman year. So I've had it that long. And yeah, I just like to tinker with stuff and work on things that have engines most of the time.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, and a lot of that also is very zen. So as you're focusing,
it's my time away from the markets.
Yeah,
it's where I
but
recharge.
it also trains the brain to be able to focus.
Yeah, got to get in that flow state.
Yeah. Now I absolutely, other than cooking with my hands, which I'm very good at, and it's something that I do a lot. Have no ability to tinker with my hands.
Yeah.
Some of it has to do with my nails.
I'm not a good cook at all either.
Okay.
My wife is much better.
So I've had this quest to try to find what are things that put me in a Zen-like state. And basically it always has to be something that if you take your focus away, it's not going to be a good thing. So like, for example, I got heavily into TRX. Do you know what TRX is?
Yeah, the workout bands, right?
Well, they're straps.
Yeah, straps.
Right, and it's something the Navy SEALs had actually invented. The thing is that it requires a lot of balance. So much so that if your mind starts thinking of, oh, you know, I got to call this one, or you fall, or you just lose your balance.
Yeah.
So I'm always in quest for things that I can do that will train my mind back to a single focus, and a lot of that now has become more meditative because TRX is very physical. So now I'm back at the gym just kind of working with a trainer, so that's not a lot of Zen moments because we're interacting constantly. So now I've been getting into meditation, because if you can, and I'm not talking about having like a mantra, you know, or that kind of stuff. To me, a meditation is when you look at an object and you put your mind into that object and you just keep staring at that object until all the external noise starts going away. And when you have that moment, you go, oh, that's when you can stop.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, what we're really talking about here is a mind, body, spirit relationship to trading, which is a thing.
It is. I mean, it's you versus you. It's not you versus the market. The market's going to do whatever it's going to do. It doesn't even know you were there. So you got to make sure that you are making the right decisions for yourself, and don't trip yourself up.
Well, in the floor, we used to say that the market is your best psychologist. And man, is that ever true. If you're feeling a little self-destructive, even if you don't know you're feeling self-destructive, the market tells you you're being self-destructive. Yeah. It's such an interesting business because it's instant gratification in essence, particularly the shorter the time frame, the more instant gratification. How do you deal with not allowing your success rate in terms of trading? Because, you know, we all lose money. That's part of the game. How do you fight that sort of monster, if you will, of self-doubt and self-effacement and feeling poorly if you're losing money, or does that not bother you?
I think just time in the seat, so much experience, and the fact that when I was learning, even though I was following mentors and other people, they weren't exactly right for me. I had to pick up little components from everybody to kind of come up with my trading style that resonated with me. And so in the beginning, I was just losing all the time. It was death by 1,000 cuts. And I think you just get used to it. You just kind of get numb to it because like, oh, it's probably going to be another loser. Yep, probably going to be another loser. And as long as it's small enough, you know, you'll survive, or at least do paper trading. I tell people all the time, because if you're new, you're going to lose money. And so paper trade until you kind of get a little bit of experience. And that's, I mean, I did it the hard way, so I was using real money, and it, you know, fortunately I had a bigger account, but in small trades lasted me long enough before I would run out of money or anything. And then that's where I went off on my own, and then I started to, when I got the Moxie indicator and had my own rules, I was able to start treading water. And it was really that was the glimmer of hope. I was like, oh my gosh, my ratio is now 50-50. You know, I'm starting to actually just stay afloat. I'm no longer losing money on everything I'm doing. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, I'm just right there. I just need to tighten things up. I need to figure out what's going on. And at that point, I wrote down my rules, I got this, and I started to just observe what was working. And in combination with the Moxie indicator, my account started to move up, and my trades were doing better, and I could hang on to these things for longer. And it's just, at that point, I'm like, okay, now I just need to have the discipline to stay on this and recognize when it's a good trade, good conditions. And as far as losing trade, yeah, they're frustrating, and they still happen, but they've just happened so much. It's just part of the game at this point, and you get used to it.
Yeah, I once went to a seminar, and the guy said, never think of it as a mistake, only think of it as feedback.
Yeah.
And that's great to hear. One thing, though, I will say from a different perspective is I do not say that people should paper trade. I'm against paper trading. And the reason why is because I never did it. I mean, I told you I went down to the floor. I borrowed money from somebody. I borrowed my first $2,000 to make my first trades in sugar. And it forced me to learn very quickly, A, because I could not afford to lose money, so I learned how to cut my losses really quick. It took me years to start thinking more abundantly because I came from a scarcity mentality, right? That was a huge shift for me. But had I paper trade, I don't think I would have really known how my own person was going to respond. And so it's me, it's not losing money. I don't lose that much money because I still have that little mentality.
Yeah.
I realized that became a weakness because I wasn't really allowing the abundance to flow. And I was watching these guys on the floor make millions and millions of dollars. I mean, I was on the floor with Paul Tudor Jones.
Yeah.
And so I watched a lot of these guys like him, just like, and my husband even, make so much money. And I would sit there fascinated because I'd be like, okay, I made a few $1,000s, that's enough. And they'd say, Mish, you're hot, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I'd be like, that's alien to me, that's alien. I'm like, it's good enough, you know? So what my lesson has been is not so much how to lose, because I expect that and I'm very controlled. I've had to let go to allow to add to winners. And that's a level of sophistication. I've been trying to teach people how to do that. Add to your winners, build more of my gold position, for example. So and so the paper trading, I hear a lot of people say that, but you don't really learn who you are.
That is true, but I also know that with our complex trading systems and this and that, and people who really are just starting, if they might push the wrong button, you know,
Right.
and so we see situations like that. I'm like, hey,
As like a fat finger wrong button, or just like they go the wrong?
Yeah, they just go the wrong way, or they don't know these things, or you know, some of these trading platforms are complicated. So I agree with you where you're coming from about, hey, you gotta learn. But I do think that there is room in there that if you really are new and you really don't know the first thing about this and that, you gotta not use real money. You'll push the wrong button, you'll lose all your money, and just something. So, you know, I think that there's a mixture of the two to where at some point,
I guess
yeah,
you kind of have to know yourself.
You need to make sure you don't build bad habits with free money kind of situation.
And you mentioned the word discipline and ideas. I do a ton of journaling. No one would ever be able to read that journal because my handwriting is terrible, and a lot of times it's
well,
just
they'll never be able to crack your code.
Right, yeah, exactly, me and the Navajos, because where I live.
Yeah.
But the point is that once I put it to paper, even if it's so erratic and chaotic on a page, there's something very important about putting your ideas down. And I make lists after lists after lists after lists to be able to journal. And it also helps with the discipline.
Yeah.
Because you learn, oh, I wrote this and I didn't do this.
Yep. Keeps you accountable.
It keeps you accountable.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Well, Mish, I think this has been a great talk with you, and I think having people learn where the discipline and journaling and paper trade or not paper trade help them figure out themselves and their own path. And I think hopefully people learned a lot from our conversation here. I know I did, and it was a wonderful time talking with you.
I feel the same exact way. It was such a pleasure to meet you. A younger person in this business who really has a lot going on. That means you have nothing but an amazing future ahead.
Well, thank you so much. We'll see where we go with each other on StockCharts.
Okay.